Welcome to Trek Table, your Sunday weekly podcast holding Trek space for
Black, Indigenous, Brown, women of color,
queer or otherwise.
Hey, what's up? I'm your host, Alison Ordela, and today I am holding Trek space for teams trying to keep the ship moving even when there's a staffing change.
Hi, I am your co-host Claudia, and today I am holding Trek space for folks, for augmented humans in an augmented world.
Hi, I'm your co-host Maya, and I'm holding Trek space for being able to breathe some clear air.
Yeah. Feel that. Yes, we want to welcome everybody to the Trek Table today, recording live on August 29th, 2021. We are so glad you all are here. We want to start and acknowledge the land that we are all on. And I hear in our Trek space that we're holding space for air and breathing air. So we also want to acknowledge the lands that we're on as we think about the air. We want to acknowledge that Trek Table teams and our equipment are on the unceded lands of the Tongva, the Chumash, the Quiche, the Ohlone, the Puyallup, Pawtucket, and Massachusetts peoples. We're grateful for the Indigenous stewards of these lands, the ancestors who've come before, those who are here now, and those who have yet to come. We invite you, our listeners and our viewers, to discover and acknowledge the lands where you are. So let's go ahead and take all that in, and if you know where whose land you are on, we invite you to go ahead and breathe that in with us. Everybody go ahead, take a breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us here today as we hold Trek space for women of color here in front of our live digital audience on Outside In Theater's YouTube channel, as well as those of you listening on the podcast archive.
Yes, and our opening track for this episode is titled Chicana Skies by the band Quetzal off their self-titled album Quetzal. You'll be hearing several tracks by them throughout the episode of Trek Table. Follow them at Quetzal Music on Instagram and see our show notes or the chat for a link to their merchandise and more.
Yes, thank you so much. We want to welcome everybody to episode 26. We made it of the Trek Table. We're so glad to be here. Thank you, as the team has already said, thank you for showing up for this discussion with women of color about Star Trek Discovery. This table assembled today is super amazing, and we are going to talk Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 9, Project Daedalus. There is a lot of things to talk about. So we're going to explore this show thematically today. We're going to look at the two character arcs that dominate this particular episode. We're going to explore Ariam's arc and some of the particular elements of that. We're also going to dig in a little bit to Burnham and some of the new clarity and connections that she's having with Spock. And then we're going to really consider how our cybernetically augmented crew are really showing up, showing out in this episode, and just all the different amazing things that are happening. So we're so excited you all are here.
So that we can build with each other, how do you enter this conversation as a Star Trek fan? Are you Star Trek curious, a newbie, an OG Trekkie, Star Trekking family, Star Trekking femmes, Trek zaddy, Trek baby? Let us know in the chat.
Awesome. And welcome back to the Trek Table, episode 26. We are going to talk today about season 2, episode 9 of Star Trek Discovery. We're going to open up this episode, Project Daedalus, in a couple of different ways. We're going to pop some Trek Table questions at you. We're going to play a little bit of popcorn recap and see if the three of us can finally get officially within that time. I believe in us. Claudia's going to walk us through all the design and Discovery design that's giving us drama and all the feels. Maya's here today with looks for Space Runway. I'm going to braid it all together with Thematix, and we have a spoiler zone. Super excited. Of course, we got some fun signal boosts today, final thoughts, and then we always jump into the gratitude. All right. So we are so excited to jump into this practice, but we do like to kind of explain who's at the table so you have a sense and a context for why and who and what we are coming to the table with. So I'm going to invite the Trek Table assembled today for table number 26. Can you share your name, your pronouns, your access check-in, visual check-in, and how you identify as a Star Trek fan? And Maya, since you kicked us off with that question before the last musical break, can I ask you to go first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Maya. I go by she, her pronouns. And I have purplish magenta hair. And I am a Guatemalan mestiza. I'm wearing glasses and pink orange eyeshadow. It's probably hard to see, but it's also for me as well. Gets me excited to do this show. I am also a physically augmented person. We might talk about that today. But I'm kind of new to this Star Trek, but I'm getting really into it. I like anything that has to do with smart people and a little bit of kicking ass, and so I'm very much grounded in my Star Trek feminist, and I'm sci-fi curious all around.
Love it, love it. We also want to welcome in the chat our Trek newbies, Domain Root, and Isil is coming in as a Trek baby, so it's all happening. All right, I'm going to go next to Claudia. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. All right, Claudia, it's your turn. Can I have you check in at the table, please?
Yeah. Hey, hello. This is Claudia. Gender pronouns they, their, she, hers. You can use those interchangeably. I prefer they, theirs. Visual description. I'm an African American woman sitting on the original set of it's not the real set. I'm in front of a green screen, but it looks like the original set of the first Enterprise. And I'm wearing a red Star Trek shirt that I think has some rainbow stripes on it for LGBTQ-ness. I am physically disabled, so every once in a while I'll pull a face. I'm very rarely pulling a face at a Star Trek opinion, and generally I'm pulling a face because one of my muscles is pulling me. I have got my hot beverages to help me fight the smoke that is definitely impacting my ability to breathe. But other than that, tea, Earl Grey hot. All of my access needs are covered for now, and I would describe myself as a generational Star Trek fan. It came to me from my mama, and I spread it to the children.
Okay. Welcome. Grateful to your mama for spreading it to you, and so that you can help us spread it to the children. And I just feel compelled to honor that Claudia and Maya, you are both in a place where the air quality and the soak and the fires are. So I just holding extra space for y'all today, and everybody up in those parts of the United States that are Western United States that are being impacted right now by fires. And there's so many things going on. So I just want to appreciate that. I'm Dayla. I'm going to do my check-in really quick. My pronouns she, he, they, or Dayla. Visually, I'm a mixed queer Filipinx person. I've got my hair in a sculptural look today, exploring the gradations of black to light blue to dark blue hair. I am also sitting in front of a green screen so that I could be in Captain Pike's Ready Room. It's my new favorite bar on the USS Discovery. So I thought I would show up there today. And and my access check-in is I did a very rigorous physical series of trainings this week. I want to say what's up to all of the Outside In fam, as well as the fam from the City Company and the Los Angeles community that showed up and showed out for this training we just did this week. I know some folks were trying to catch us at the barbecue today, so if you all are there, what's up? Miss you. And my physical access check-in is that my legs are burning, but it was a good lesson. So I'm here. And then last but not least, I identify as poly sci-fi. As I said before on this show, what's up to the Farscape fam, to the Battlestar Galactica. Yes, I am part of the other Star Wars-ness, and there's some new things going on over there. But honestly, ever since I met Star Trek Discovery, I have felt this is the place I need to be so much. I love this show that we started Trek Table so we could talk about Star Trek Discovery. So while I'm sci-fi poly, I would certainly say my primary sci-fi partner is Star Trek Discovery. So I'm definitely all up in the now. So yes, we want to keep welcoming people. How do you enter? I know there's some newbies. Welcome. We love that you're here. Welcome to the Cannon Heads who are joining us. See a couple friends from across the pond who are also in the chat. This is so awesome. So welcome everybody. All right, we do a lot of arrival because we want to make sure we're ready to have these Star Trek conversations because we know we may not always agree. But the last business we do before we jump into our discussions is we just want to name our Trek Table agreements. So I just want to say welcome to all who enter. Whether you're a newbie or you were raised in a Star Trekking generational family like Claudia, welcome. Let's build this space together.
Whether you use Trek Table as your nerdy exploration or as a part of your self-care ritual, Trek Table is a weekly space to put down the world for a second and come into Trek space.
This is a space for Black, Brown, Indigenous, women of color to be a fan, a geek, a nerd, and explore the vastness of the Star Trek multiverse.
Yes, and Trek Table is also a place for allies to come and engage and explore as well. This is an opportunity for allies to hold space and focus on insights or perspectives and experiences that we may not be familiar with.
And now that we are all here, we remind you that we seek to build an environment of mutual respect and listening. We understand we will disagree, and that's actually part of the fun, but there's enough hate going on in the world. So please keep your phasers on stun.
All right, so let's go ahead, everybody. Let's breathe in those agreements. Those of us assembled at the table, all of us in the chat. Let's go ahead, take a breath in. And exhale.
And that brings us to our first Trek Table question posed to our Trek Table assembled here and to those participating in the Outside In YouTube channel chat. Spock and Burnham are playing literal three-dimensional chess. What's your favorite dramatic chess scene in all of fiction? Hey y'all, so I'm back here with Trek Table question number 1. Spock and Burnham are playing three-dimensional chess. So what is your favorite chess scene? And I'm giving you all of fiction to play with. Like, you can choose from TV, from movies, from sci-fi to action to drama. It turns out they have been using chess in stories since Get. Apparently it's a thing that I continue to love. Let me start with Maya. And you can list several if you have several. It turns out I had several. How about you? Did you have a favorite chess scene at all? And I'm going to come out the closet, Joe. I was on the chess team in high school. Okay.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I sort of feel like it comes up in fiction as like a moment that kind of distinguishes class or like logic and intelligence. Hello, Spock. So I think there's elements of power in there. But I was thinking of lots of visuals of, Alice in Wonderland has been referenced a lot. I like it when people are physically, chess people in, and sometimes they're caught. So I feel like there's lots of images. I wish I could think of some of the other ones, but
Harry
sometimes
Potter.
Yeah, and it's like very scary for some reason. But then also, I can't remember exactly. I was just thinking in Blade Runner, like a lot of sci-fi. So Blade Runner, there's a moment, and I can't remember. Yeah, maybe they're trying to figure out if he's an actual. They're playing like a remote game, I think. So, anyways,
yeah, no, I love it. Like when it's like you want to show the character so smart. They're so smart they don't even need a chessboard. They can just say moves. That's how smart they are. I'm just gonna give the smart Alick award for today's episode to Satterfield in the chat. He said, "I've not watched Queen's Gambit yet. I'm sure there will be one in there." And here's the thing, I think you might be right. I didn't put Queen's Gambit on my list. What was I thinking? There's so many good scenes in that one. But Dayla, how about you? Chess scenes that you've loved in fiction.
Okay, I have to acknowledge that this scene with Burnham and Spock is one of my favorite chess scenes in all of fiction. This episode, I think they play chess next episode too. But yes, them playing chess, so great. Yes, I also want to say that I'm going to give shouts out to the Star Wars version of chess that they play on the Millennium Falcon. I forget what that one's called.
Yeah, the holographic. Did they call that 3D chess too, actually? Or was it like 4D? Because it was like holograms?
Right.
But there's like little monsters.
Yeah. And then they like pick you up and yes. And then I would say I really liked the movie Queen of Katwe. was a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2016 movie with Lupita Nyong'o and David Oyelowo. I can't say his name right now. But it's about a little girl in Uganda who learns how to play chess, and it's part of like her life liberation strategy. And I just appreciate. So yes, I would say I have seen Queen's Gambit. Yes, there is lots of chess in that, and I appreciate the chessness. And then the wizard chess in Harry Potter, although I'm not supporting the turfness of the turfness. But those are some of my answers of my favorite chess.
There was a very cute chess in the park moment in Bruno Mars concert that aired on CBS. So that sounds amazing. LOL, the Apollo one. I don't know what that means, but I'm excited as Seal. I'd like more details. Place them in the chat so I can check them out. I feel like I was going to drop my favorite chess scene is the one that's it's Sherlock. Sherlock is always playing chess, and it's the one Sherlock movie with Robert Downey Jr. where like the entire final act of the scene it's a full it's using a chess game to make, if you're into chess, the entire like all the action is chess moves. It's real slick. But you know what? Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey has a pretty funny scene with them playing chess with the devil. And I recognize it's like a reference to the Seventh Seal, but I don't care. Chess with the devil every single day. So I'm going to say that was my favorite. Shout out to all of our audience members, especially, was there a terrible chess moment in Voyager where they were the pieces? I think there might have been. Or do we have any other Voyager heads at the table or in the audience? I think this might have been the episode where they were sucked into like an imaginary world. Is that what it was? Where it was like a computer program messing with their brains? Yeah?
I'm going to say yes. But I
You're
don't
not
know
sure.
For sure. No, sorry. I just want to affirm you.
Thank you for like trying to make me feel not alone in my deep Voyager fandom. It's okay. There are people out there in the Star Trek universe that will back me up. Y'all leave us a comment later on. And that was Trek Table question number 1.
Yes, and the Trek Table is proud to be a part of the digital theater platform at Outside In Theater. Like and subscribe to the Outside In YouTube channel for our weekly live digital recordings. If you're listening on our podcast, you can check it out at youtube.com/outsideinthatre. Amazing. And with that song, Matanzas, by the band Quetzal, we know that it is time for Popcorn Recap. We're going to do this today. The game is simple. We only have 2.5 minutes to share chunklets of plot from this week's episode.
Today, we will be talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 9, Project Daedalus, written by Michelle Paradise, directed by Jonathan Frakes.
And we think it's funny because I'm a Star Trek newbie. Claudia comes from a generational Trek family, and Dela loves minutia. Can we get it done? Rachel, please set 2.5 minutes on the timer. We can do this.
Okay, so Admiral Katrina Cornwell travels secretly to the Discovery in her red and white shuttlecraft, and then she interrogates Spock, and she has this video footage that depicts him killing all those 3 doctors back on that starbase where he was in whites. And then Cornwell orders them to fly to Section 31 because they've been silent for 2 weeks, and she wants to take back power and reset control.
Ariam is clearing out her memory for the week, choosing what memories to keep. She shares with Tilly the story of how she became augmented.
And later, Burnham is telling Spock that he should play chess to help him find his logic, and they have a fight, and he's very angry, but he is loving being angry, and she's so sad, she's about to cry.
Yeah, and meanwhile, security officer Commander Nan is following Ariam around the ship, rolls up on her in her little secret lab because she's watching her act erratic and download stuff, and then Detmer has to fly freestyle through the minefield because there's these blackout bombs. Ugh.
And then Saru notices that Section 31 faked the footage using holograms of Spock, all because of their heat signatures.
Yeah. And later on, Stamets and Spock, like they totally bond, right? So they have like deep conversations as they're fixing stuff and being scientific. And Spock tells Stamets that Culber moved out because he loves him, but no longer knows himself. And he's also like, your sister loves you, get over yourself. So it's very intense.
So meanwhile, his sister Burnham, Non, and Ariam are like the Charlie's Angels into the Section 31. And then after life support systems are re-engaged, then like all these dead admirals fall from the ground, and there's lots of dead bodies.
Yes, they fall from the sky, but Ariam attacks Non by ripping out her face implants. So mean. She attempts to upload the sphere's knowledge of all artificial intelligence into Control's database.
Control. So Tilly appeals over the comms to Ariam's emotional memory, and Ariam asks to be ejected into space before Control can gain the knowledge it wants to go full Terminator. And then Burnham, she doesn't want to, so then Non finally has to shoot Ariam into space before it's too late.
And right as she goes, Ariam is like, "It's about you, Burnham. It's about you. Ask about Project Daedalus." I think we did it. That was the episode.
That was pretty much it. We did it.
That's amazing. I totally resisted adding stuff, so I just want to say that.
We all contributed to that win.
We all had control.
Yes.
Please comment in the chat if you recognize what we are referring to, because I can't help myself.
Yes, no, it's our ECO's already loving the control. So yes, it's happening. We are getting it. I just want to say congrats to us. We finally, Satterfield was watching us way on the Twitch time. So look, we did it. So yes, thank you, Domain T-Root. Yes, we're so proud of ourselves. All right. But if you feel like you need the act-by-act breakdown and you want the details, we honor that. We want to meet your needs here at the Trek Table. So we're going to refer you to our friends at Women at Warp. Sue, who we got a chance to meet during the IDIC festival, she actually did this recap back in 2019. Thank you, Sue. And we're going to drop this link in the chat for you. It'll also be in our episode notes.
And if you've been having a good time, as we like to do, let's keep the dialogue going, whether you're watching it now or in the future. Like and follow us on Instagram at Trek Table and on Twitter at Trek Table 1 and on Instagram at Trek Table. Join our convos using the hashtags Trek Table, hashtag BIWOC Trek, hashtag Star Trek Discovery.
Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to Discovery Designs, where we're gonna dish on design elements giving us all this drama. I've got some topics that I've listed, but really this is just a section for us to go off. So can we talk about the brain mapping first of all, because that was so cool.
Yes. I will just jump in here and say I was super impressed by all the different tech connected to this brain mapping and was curious why we're only seeing it with Admiral Cornwell. But yeah, like the balls. Yeah. I don't know, Maya, if you want to jump in here too.
Oh, yes. I love how the balls, like do we see them like come from his head and then go into and then we see his brain on the screen? It's like she's a psychologist, so she has access to all this technology.
It reminds me a little bit of like the brain balls from Fantastic Planet. I don't know if any of y'all seen that French film where like the aliens meditate and then their consciousness goes into a ball and it goes out into outer space. I think it's called Fantastic Planet. I should move us along. The encryption key finder that was like, it felt very like an old school video game with the graphics. And I was like, you made that to make sure I could keep up with what was happening in the plot. Thank you, designers.
And that was the thing that had like all the little boxes, and Ariam was like standing there, and then like the Y locked in, and then like 4 boxes later the N locked in, and then the 9 locked in. That one. That's what you're talking about.
But then later after Ariam had been doing shenanigans, the Y wasn't locked in anymore. And I was like, I see why you made that text the size of the entire screen.
Okay.
Can we take a moment to talk about the 3D chest? This is the first time can we talk about this? This is a canon moment.
Is this officially the first canon moment where we see and witness 3D chess in the show?
What we
in the timeline, I guess?
well, in the timeline, what we hear is that Burnham is the one that told Spock, you should play this game to help your logic. Before, I think his favorite game was like throwing holograms into the air or something, but he wasn't all about the 3D chess until this moment. I think this is the moment that made him into it.
It feels like it was a family game because she's like, oh, Sarek wouldn't have, taught me that. And why aren't you doing this? And, so there's all this moments of like, as if he should be following a certain moves that, that are logical. Right. So, and he's totally disrupting that. And it totally makes her upset.
Blackout minds? Can we talk about the blackout minds? I'm totally switching the subject because I was like, I could do an entire episode on 3D chess. I'm hoping it comes back up. But the blackout minds, I thought that they were interesting and super scary because like at first I was like, oh, minds are minds are minds. But like these ones seem to saw through the hull of the ship. I was like, that's intense.
And I love how at the top of this sequence, I'm sorry I didn't get to pull the image that we talked about, but where Admiral Cornwell's got her knee up on the captain's chair base, like she's Jonathan Frakes as Will Riker.
The Johnny Frakes move with the knee, with the foot on the chair. I tend to do the Johnny Frakes move whenever I want to seem confident when I'm not. You'll see me like doing this. That's me pulling a Johnny Frakes. Okay. That's what that is, where I'm got my foot up on something.
I like to pull my shirt down a lot.
That's the Picard. That's the Picard.
That's because my belly is popping out.
That's you doing that's why Picard was doing it too. So that's you doing a Picard plus a Johnny Frakes. Picard into the Johnny Frakes.
Oh my gosh.
Speaking of, and I'm so rude. At some point in my life, I'm going to meet the director, Jonathan Frakes, and I'm gonna have to speak to being so casual with his name. But he was
like
making
Mr. Johnny
moves. But no, did you notice how he was making them directing moves with like the flipping camera and whatnot? And like in that one scene where like Pike was like doing his like, I'm doing the speech that like is the best speech ever. There was like all these lights behind him. Very impressive.
Yes, and I mean, I definitely want to say, there's a shot of the chessboard after Spock has his little tantrum. Like, we just get so many moments about how to connect to character, how to, like, the way they're using Alice in Wonderland as part of the canon of this series, like, just really appreciating. And then there's an image on the screen of Pike and Burnham walking through the hallway, and I just was so impressed that Pike was the one who kept having to move his shoulder back anytime a crew member passed them, that it just felt like such a subtle nod to the way in which this is a building a different kind of Star Trek, or building a Star Trek closer to the vision of what Gene Roddenberry thought, which was infinite diversity and infinite combinations, and that the white man captain is not the thing that everyone has to go around, that he's actually trying to get this information from Burnham, but he's got the outside wall. So he's going to act, he's going to give over to what I keep doing this thing with my shoulder. Like, I'm going to let you pass because it's not about him being captain. Yeah.
I feel like you got to do a shout out for Jonathan Frakes there. Cause I'm like, who was making sure that the camera was on? I mean, maybe it was Michelle Paradise. Maybe it was in the script that there were these silent moments that were written in that were giving us story. Cause like, can we just talk about all of the Detmer, Owusakin eye contact action? Come on.
Yes.
So much drama.
The reactions are so much fun because it's like you can almost hear what they're saying to each other, because we're all like I'm having moments where I'm like, wait, they did what? So it's really nice to kind of see almost their communication, even though there's no words for it, all that nonverbal reaction acting.
Can we talk about the red eyes and the 3 red dots and that piece of storytelling and she was so scary. She was so scary with that neck. Oh.
Yes, the head tilt. Yeah, I think I used to do that in pictures when I was a teenager, like all of a sudden I would tilt my head, but no, for real here, it definitely means something has taken over your brain and your body and you're not in control.
If any of you at any point in the middle of a Trek table just go, I'm going to run, because I'm going to know. If anyone out there, if you ever see someone like just suddenly go, you're going to know something's wrong. Controls in them.
Totally. And I'm just going to say for podcast listeners, what's happening is Claudia's making the head tilt pretty sharply like Ariam does in the episode. And I will say, again, another nod to Jonathan Frakes, that moment where Ariam turns around while they're on Section 31's base and she's at the mainframe computer and she turns around and she does the neck tilt and the eyes go red. And Nan's got the phaser up and she's like, what the hell was that? So I appreciate that it gave us the through line, and obviously plot wise that we had to see that moment so everyone understood it wasn't Ariam. But I see like in the chat, Eseal's like, that was creepy. And I just also honor like Satterfield jumped in and was like, the mines were banned. And so we heard Burnham or somebody say that, right, when they approached the base. So just that, we're feeling all this push up against Section 31 and Ariam
and the mines
scary.
don't explode. They're like little saws, you know, that cut on the actual ship itself. So that was crazy. But then it's also adds to the whole like secrecy of Section 31. Like, oh wait, they do things different, not like Federation stuff, you know.
Yeah, Pike's
war
against
makes
it.
you do. Yeah.
Pike is fully against it. All right, y'all, I want to give us like one more thing we can talk about. We can go in any order, but just one more design. There were so many design elements, y'all. We could be here for a while. One more design element.
I mean, I'll take this moment. I know we have some imagery for is the way that Ariam, what I would call her memory interface. Like, I just thought it was so elegantly designed. It was just her face in a circular portal. We see this in her quarters, and it looks like it's just attached from the ceiling by these two silver rods. And I was just fascinated by that process of her, you know, each of us has our rituals. She doesn't brush her teeth. She goes into her memory pod, which as I'm looking at all the things in my world right now, it looks a lot like a giant O-ring that we might use to light ourselves in the Zoom times.
Wow. Yes, it does.
Yeah, like she's an Instagram influencer and she's got to get real close up on her eyeshadow to show you how she does
our
it.
Audience who's listening, the images, I hadn't seen it until now, and now I can't not see it. Wow.
Yes, I love that Ariam as Instagram influencer. Yes. Oh, do you want to talk a little bit about the friend circle that we saw in the Ariam memories, and like we get to see Ariam and Detmer as like cybernetically enhanced humans who are friends?
I love that. I'll be honest. I want to talk about Stamets talking to his machine. I like that Stamets fixes things the same way I fix my phone, where I'm like, why don't you work? Why won't you do what I want you to? I like that that's how Stamets fixes the Discovery. And here's the thing. Spock is against it initially, and finally Spock's like, oh, actually I see your logic. Let me help. I was into this bonding, and I was into him talking to his machines.
I mean, isn't he an astromycologist? I mean, he's dealing with actual living things. You know, the spores it's a network of living things. So, you know, I mean, we know that plants react different ways if you talk to them, and, you know, if you talk to yourself in positive ways, I'm sure, you know, we would get things done in a different way. But yeah, that's that positive self-talk.
I love that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I feel like the last thing I want to mention, I know Claudia, you're wrapping us up, but I did think it was super fascinating at the top of the episode when the Discovery was waiting for Cornwell's shuttle to arrive. It looked like it was like hanging out in a parking spot, and it had its hazards on.
Yeah.
And then as the shuttlecraft came under the belly, then we got the spotlight on the actual ship. So I just want to shout out to probably Detmer turned on the hazards, right? Or would that be a Wosakun's job? Who turns on the hazard lights on the USS Discovery?
Well, you don't want them to get hit by a random ship that's also passing by. You just got to make sure you hit them hazards. That's just common sense.
And the belly of the ship was super detailed. It was really beautiful. I just remember seeing that, like, wow, you know, we see the ship from different angles, but that it just looked like it had some etchings or something on the bottom of it. It's real pretty. Space and spaceships.
I like ending on that note of it was real pretty. Space and spaceships. I like that. I'm going to end our discovery design on that note.
And yes, if you want to take a second and give a shout out, I want to give a shout out to our podcast listeners. Thank you for being here today and chatting with us in the chat and also in the future. But if you want to support us as we grow this little show that could, your likes and subscribes mean a whole lot to us. So please, if you have a second, send us a tweet at TrekTable1 or let us know your thoughts. Hashtag TT26 for this episode or hashtag Disco Design.
And now, as we head into our next musical break, I'm going to bring you Trek Table question number 2. This is a real serious question, and I want you all to think hard about it and answer it. Was Tilly's robot joke a microaggression? And welcome back, everyone. I'm back here with Trek Table question number 2. I was joking a little bit before when I was like, you have to take this super serious. You have to take this super serious. Was Tilly's robot joke a microaggression? But here's the thing. It's a real question. Are there microaggressions in the future? Are there microaggressions in Starfleet? Are there only microaggressions between aliens? Like, what is the story with microaggressions in the future? So I will start with you, Dayla. The question is, was Tilly's robot joke a microaggression?
My short answer is yes. She giggled it away the way she giggled it away, right? And I feel like she said it not to microaggress, but to try to be cute with Ariam. Like, that was where she was going. But the way that Detmer rolled up after, I was like, that feels hell like a microaggression. Like, the fact that Detmer rolled up to try to support. So my personal vote is yes.
All right. And for the audience, well, the audience knows the scene. So, but we'll talk through the scene. So you've got the scene, which is Tilly's like, hey, are you a robot? And she says robot like old fashioned, like people said robot in like the 1920s. Like, we don't even say robot like that anymore. She's like, hey, you're a robot. So we know she's making a joke. We know that, and we already know that they have a humor where they use the opposite, where they say the opposite of what they mean, because there's some other scene where she's like, I erase your memories first. But then she doesn't. And then Ariam responds with saying, no, I'm not a robot. I'm an augmented person. And then we've got I'm augmented too, fixing it and making the social interaction really smooth. Now that I've given you that moment by moment breakdown, Maya, what did you think? Did you think it was a microaggression?
I mean, they're close, and I think that I'm sure it bugs when you're different and people don't always know what it's like being you, and maybe don't know the challenges of being different than how you were. We saw her as a human, and now she's a cybernetic human, so I think it was kind of gently but necessarily corrected. And then I think also Detmer, there was almost like a high five of like Cybernetix for the win,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, Tilly might be a little bit insecure because she can't move as fast as a cybernetically augmented human can. And she's used to being, one of the smartest people in the room. But that's the Federation. You've got all kinds of smarty pants and people with extras, that make
real.
us. Yeah.
All right.
So corrected, and we're moving on.
Apparently, I am the outlier in this exchange. I'm not sure if it was a microaggression, but let me break it down. This is my logics for it. There's a couple of them. So one is the knowledge that we often have relationships where, as I acknowledged, there's like I'm saying the opposite of what I actually mean as part of the humor and relationship building. I can say a pretend mean thing to you, which actually reinforces how much safety and awesomeness we have in our relationship, because you know that we're so good that I can say a pretend mean thing. It reminds me of in England. I think we might have some people in the chat from the country of England, where they have a practice of taking the piss. And when you take the piss, as I understand it, I am from the land of the Americas, so we don't totally understand these things. But the practice is, I'm going to say a mean thing to you that's making fun of you, but it's because we're friends. It's okay because we're friends. Although actually, I might not understand that cultural practice enough. If others could explain that more in the chat, please go ahead and do. So I don't think it was a microaggression. I think it was her in full knowledge of knowing these are the right things to say for our community and our relationship, and I can say that in front of you. Now, here's the thing. I think it would have been a microaggression if she'd said it in front of like some random aliens or like just random folks who didn't understand the context of their communication and relationship. But between Ariam, Tilly, and Detmer, I think they have enough community that maybe they can be close. Cool like that. Now, and I'm basing this on real lived experience. There are some people who can like maybe make a joke, like a family member can make a joke to me. And if we're in a family setting, that's fine. You just made a funny joke about me not being fast because of my cane. If they did that in front of other people, maybe it wouldn't be so cute, right? In front of other people who's listening, somehow it'd make it not a joke anymore. And especially if a stranger did that to me, it wouldn't be cute at all. So that's my very, very strong opinion, apparently, on whether or not Tilly was doing a microaggression. And a shout out to the audience comment, you're only mean to the ones you love. I'm not sure if that's actually true. I feel like folks are mean to a lot of people. We see lots of people being mean to lots of people, but I get what you're saying and I appreciate it.
I believe isn't there also the dozens, you know, and things like that. And also, I believe they call it talking shit. I mean, I believe we have some of that here for sure. But yeah, you have to be in. You have to be on the in. You have to be on the inside. You can't just roll up and start talking to people like you know them.
Right.
That is real. That is real. Don't roll up to an alien like you know them like that.
As Ezeal says in the chats, LOL, facts, Claudia, facts.
And that brings us to the end of Trek Table question number 2.
Some of the eye-catching looks from function to fashion in the 23rd century.
Woo! Doing that dance break for Space Run?
Space Runway. Yes, dance break. Welcome to Space Runway. We are doing highlights from season 2, episode 9. Good thing, because that's what we've been talking about. And we have 5 looks today. Look number 5, 3 cheers for Cybernetix. Yes, here we have a glimpse of that conversation of Ariam in the before. Oh, first we have Tilly and Ariam, and then Ariam in the before times, before her augmentations. She is all human with blonde hair blowing in the wind, wearing an orange spaghetti strap tank with a bathing suit peeking out. Yes, I noticed. Walking joyful with her new husband on the beach before a tragic accident that resulted in her present form as a cybernetically augmented human with humor and heart under all that metal and silicone. Look number 4, angry rogue Vulcan.
After help from the Telosians last episode, Spock is back to a version of himself with lots to say in that gravelly baritone of his. He's wearing a knee-length, suede-like, space leather collarless coat that closes at the waist and opens up to reveal tight black leather pants and knee-high boots. The rough Vulcan on the run look is completed by wispy Vulcan bangs, eyebrows, and beard that frames all the emotions having handsome face.
Woohoo! Yes.
Yes. And look number 3, background crew. What's your name?
We see you, background crew member, who we have called Mole Butt Face in the past. We're going to be accountable to our human-centric ways of viewing species, and we're going to call ourselves in. That's right, we are modeling some accountability. Look at your beautiful eyes and many tentacles and no mouth on that gorgeously large head of yours. A Mole Butt Face nomenclature no more. We hear you're called an Osnolus. And we thank you for showing us Disco has the funds to bring in some unique crew members to catch our eye. Yes. with
Yes,
the Icelanders. Oh, to catch our eye. I get it.
very yeah. I think there's like 6 eyes. Look number 2, Non. Hello, Non. Security officer Non, with her flowy curls and skirt with pants disco uniform, hot on the trail of the mystery of the encrypted messages. She then suits up once again in her red shirt jumpsuit under her spacesuit, with Burnham as well in silver and Ariam in blue, like Space Charlie's angels. Even though Ariam, under the influence of evil, pulls off Non's breathing apparatus, once again, Non is the red shirt that lived. And look number 1. Do you want to find the Admiral? Frozen Vulcan Admiral.
Yes, initially scapegoated as a logic extremist villain. It's a bird. It's Wispy Bangs. No, it's the real Admiral Patar, who drops from the sky and onto the ground next to Burnham. So intense you can even hear the clink and the roll of the Admiral badge as it drops and rolls around on the ground.
Blink, 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 blink. And that's Space Runway for this week. Thanks, nerds, for indulging me in space fashion talk, fashion form and function in the future.
Amazing. Welcome to Thematix, the section of Trek Table where we like to braid it all together and kind of pull all these themes and conversations that we've been having as we share our insights and reflections on this week's episode. All right. So the 2 major topics today are not necessarily thematically. They run into themes, but I realize I'm just focused on these 2 story arcs of Ariam and Burnham. And I know we just had that question, Trek Table question number 2. Was Tilly doing the microaggression joke or not? And I feel like when I see Ariam, her response to that, it felt like, no, I'm Ariam, Miss Cybernetically augmented if you're microaggressing, in a very kind of Janet Jackson kind of way, right? This is the episode with control. Okay, so I want to open up this conversation as we think about Ariam. Maya, I heard you reference it at the top of the show about being an augmented human yourself, and just watching this trajectory, this arc of Ariam's that we've seen from the roll call in season 2, episode 1, when Pike first comes onto the ship. But we're also seeing it in this episode with the way that Ariam, we see her connections to the other crew. It's not necessarily a new thing. Her Instagram influencer, memory interface downloader module, and just her process of having to connect to her human self as she continues her functions on the ship, and then ultimately is kind of taken over by control by this evil red 3 dots in her eyes. So I'm wondering, let's talk a little bit about Ariam's journey. What's sticking out for you? What's resonating for you about Ariam in this episode? Maya, can I ask you to go first?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we don't know a whole lot about Ariam until this episode. And, we see that she sees things differently, but that she is still human, right? And so I think that's also a lot of what I see people being drawn to Star Trek about, is that there are all these kind of, not only are they going on adventures, but they're smart people, and sometimes people who are smart or super or just kind of different, see things differently, sometimes don't always have social skills in the same way, but we see that she has a lot of love, she has humor, and that she's an augmented human. And so as someone myself, I have metal parts in my legs. I have a prosthetic knee, and my ankles had to be put back together after a horrible accident. So like Ariam, I wasn't born with these particular augmentations or disabilities, but I'm someone who has had to adjust to them and always has to adjust to them, right? It's kind of like not something that you're just healed from, and your life is never the same after something like that. And so, but we see that she, is a little bit, is just, not as expressive, but we do get to see a little bit more of her inner workings. And so, but one thing that is different than my own experience is that I don't have any very noticeable extra superpowers, so I do have the superpower of recognizing, that I think every bathroom should have, bars and be extra big, or, that we should have room for wheelchairs, and accessibility. And we should be constantly talking about accessibility and stairs and, and describing those kinds of things. And we do our check-ins about that too. That should be something that we don't think about as an afterthought. Right. But her augmentations actually help her. She seems really strong, and she also seems to be able to process information really fast. And oh my gosh, being able to figure out which memories you want to keep and not. I know we're going to talk about that later, but I wish I had that kind of a memory sometimes.
Totally. I just want to breathe in what you said, Maya. So take that in. I want to say thank you for sharing that. Claudia, I wonder your perspectives on Ariam's journey. Where are you landing with Ariam?
Yeah. I want to say thank you for sharing as well, Maya. You made my brain go to different places, and I always enjoy that. I'm now thinking of myself as a cybernetically augmented human. With the pandemic, trapped inside the home, requiring specific types of programs to communicate well with people, the necessity of captions. Star Trek often has the plot point of Star Trek personnel was taken over by alien brain. It's usually like an alien brain that takes them over, and then they act different, and usually it's in ways that endangers the crew, and it's always exciting because you're like, oh, nobody can tell. I love that plot point. I 100% wasn't expecting Ariam to be dead at the end of it. So like my feelings were hurt because I really connected to her as like a character, and I thought that she'd come back to herself, and then she'd just be a character I got to enjoy. So I actually really, you got me, Star Trek, you got me. But I was just thinking about like what would happen to me when I got doxxed, when my information was endangered. The one day where the internet stopped working and the Wi-Fi wasn't working, I was utterly disabled. I couldn't do any of my things. And I just think of the body horror, the visceral body horror that the Ariam's character goes through, being taken over by control, not having the ability to control her own body as it's endangering the lives of her crewmates. Just so much drama. I was there for it.
And I definitely appreciate that, Claudia, and the way that you're helping us think about, for all of us who have experienced the pandemic in these ways where technology is our vital connection to other humans. I just appreciate what both of you bring to the table every week is just these perspectives that help us to unpack the show. And I think the thing that struck me about Ariam was that watching her say to Tilly, "Stay here with me at this table until I finish. Don't leave. Don't leave until I'm done." And wishing that Ariam at least had a sentence to say to Tilly, "I think something is wrong." Like if she had just said something like, "I think something is wrong. There's something that doesn't feel right." And I think about, in my life experience, the people who I love who have been disabled and or who are living with different abilities, and the way in which you all have taught me how to think about my own body. And just, I think ableism is one of the isms and oppressions that all of our bodies eventually change and move and shift. So this fallacy of a fixed body, of the Adonis or of the Olympian is gonna go. And even just, we had that conversation, I think last episode or 2 episodes ago, about Simone Biles as like this superhuman person stepping forward and saying, "I need a break." Naomi Osaka stepping forward and say, "I need a break." Venus Williams saying, Serena saying, "I'm gonna sit out because I tore my hamstring," right? So just thinking about not just athlete bodies, because I feel like that's also a place people go, but I do invite listeners and viewers to think about, like, what is our connection to our bodies? What do you take for granted? And, I mentioned at the top of the show that I had done this training this week. And one of my questions in these training processes is, the tension that exists in, for me as a larger bodied person trying to move through the world. I understand my center of gravity and my world in a different way than I think a slimmer, more active body might. But I also wonder what happens when your ability changes, what happens when your body ages. Hearing you, Maya, talk, what happens when we experience a life-changing accident? Or hearing you, Claudia, what happens when I discover my connection and need to be dependent on technology in order for my world to continue, or my days to so.
And I don't mean to make us go over, but I just want to tag in and say you're also reminding me of the superhuman disabled person, and the fact that if you have a disability, dominant culture expects you to do a performance of "I got this," and that's what I saw in that fight. I saw Tilly being real, like having such amazing emotional literacy and clocking what the moment was, and being like, "I don't understand what's happening, but I got you, Ariam." And then Ariam turns to her and says, "Actually, I'm fine. You can go, Tilly. I've got this." And I was like, oh, I've seen disabled friends do that performance. I've done that performance for people where I'm like, I'm fine. And I didn't. So, yeah.
Hell yeah. And the other thing that makes me so angry is the way that we were able to shift so easily during this pandemic. I mean, maybe not easily is the right word, but there have been, I feel like I've learned so much from disability justice activists, because, that's what helped me be able to go on. I mean, I knew I could have a productive, beautiful life, even if I wasn't going to be able to walk. I knew that because I had those friends ahead before that. But now during this time, when people have felt isolation and having to, stay inside or adjust their whole entire lives, it's like, there's all kinds of people who have had to do that kind of stuff that when we've, I don't always feel like I have the correct language, right? Having like a safe word or whatever, like I need help, but I'm also still freaking capable, so I think that's frustrating. But I hope it's something we continue to learn as human beings, how to really be interdependent and take care of one another without it being like about a codependence, or that one is less than the other because of it. And that's something that I think we need each other, even if we like being alone sometimes or whatever. Yeah.
And I want to honor this conversation and say I know that part of our plan next week is the next show is also to talk a little bit more about Ariam, and kind of as we learn more about her and what happens in next episode. So I'm not going to go to a spoiler zone yet, but I do want to say as a transition, I was struck by the way I was so easily able to believe, because I'd seen Ariam in the background, and certainly in restarting watching us when we started, with Trek Table this year, when we went back to season 1 and we started from the jump, I was paying attention to Ariam from season 1 because I knew this was going to come, right? And so I've just been fascinated by her track, and I'll say what I found myself having feels about, which I'm curious about how I will feel at the top of next episode, is that we see her in her memory dump. We see her have a fight with Reese, right? They do that training sequence and he's like, "Oh, really? That's how hard you can hit me?" And she goes back into whatever, sprawling thing they're doing. But when Ariam got pushed out the airlock, this is one of the moments I was super sad about Jonathan Frakes or whoever, or the editor choice. I was like, how come we don't get to see Reese? I want to see Reese's face, because you just showed me his image, and he's another background crew member who we don't, man of color, who we just kind of see pieces of. But I just want to honor the connection that people get with each other or have with each other. And that in the diversity, equity, inclusion work that I've done, often I feel like people go to, well, if you can have a friend, they'll change your mind. So I don't know that I always believe that to be true. Just because I have friends of different backgrounds doesn't always mean it's going to interrupt my bias or my unknowing spots. But I will just say, the point, I don't mean to ramble, but I was sad, Johnny Frakes, that you didn't cut to, you went to Bryce, who I love. Bryce was there, but I was like, Bryce isn't the one who just had an emotional shot with, so now I'm just picking a Star Trek fight with the editors of this episode, because I wanted to see the Asian man have feelings. So I'll also name that. So all the things. Yes, Star Trek fight. Okay. All right. So I want to acknowledge we're probably not done with all the things with Ariam, and that's why we love in Thematix. We do like to braid it together. So I'm going to ask us to just take a clearing breath, holding space for all those things we just brought up. Yeah. So let's go ahead and take that breath in and exhale. I want to keep appreciating the life truth that we're hearing from you, Maya, and you, Claudia. Thank you so much. Friends in the chat, we're inviting that as well. All right, so this last conversation and thematics before we go to spoiler zone, I do want to talk a little bit about Burnham's story arc in this episode. And again, another person who's had an extreme amount of trauma and loss in their life. We've gotten to see over these last several episodes, like how she handles fear, how she's building trust, what is perception, what is illusion. And I'm just wondering, in this moment, watching Burnham have to struggle with that. She literally is finally given the order by Pike to pull the airlock door. And we're seeing in visual that she's just struggled with this decision. And I want to open up this conversation and wonder, Claudia, do you want to kick us off in this conversation about what you were noticing about Burnham's arc in this episode?
Yeah, well, so at the very top of the episode, we have Pike suggesting that Burnham can't do her job well because she's emotionally compromised by her relationship with Ash Tyler. It's another moment where I was like, is that a microaggression or is that just him being a good leader? I'm not sure what that moment's about. Then we see it suggested that she is emotionally compromised, I think, by Spock. And Spock argues that she takes on so much responsibility because she's running away from her emotions. Because she can't process her emotions, which I think is an amazing observation from a half Vulcan. I'm like, oh, wow, that's a good observation, Spock. And then and in each moment where that's said out loud, I, as an audience member, was like, she's not emotionally compromised. She's never emotionally compromised. She's Michael Burnham. She doesn't get emotionally compromised. But actually she does, and she totally is. And the universe would have been destroyed by Control if she had, if Non hadn't been able to hit that button, it would have been done. And that's, I'm curious about how that impacts her character for future episodes. I feel like this is one of the moments where we go, oh, right, Michael Burnham is a human being who's not only fallible in the gigantic Star Trek ways that we've made the character fallible, like by making a mistake and starting a Klingon war, but like is also fallible in she could not kill her friend.
I mean, for real, like that seems like a good skill to have, you know?
Yes.
Not wanting to kill your friend. I mean, I get it. It's for the good of all humankind, and I super understand that. But yeah, I mean, the Vulcan sarcasm, right, was something that I was noticing, this back and forth, this truth, this anger. You know, this is something that is interesting because Spock is supposed to have learned as a child, or was supposed to learn more about humanness from Burnham, and Burnham is learning more about, you know, logic, whether she likes it or not, you know, and how to be in Vulcan land. But the Vulcan sarcasm when he says to her, "Oh, you were a kid, like you really can go back and actually have saved your parents. You were locked in a closet, you know," and he's just like, for real, like you could have really, you know, fixed all of that. And that is this moment of yeah, I mean, maybe she's not dealing with some grief that she absolutely should be, but they're back and forth in that kind of anger and that messiness. A lot of truths come out, and Spock isn't holding back, you know, and Burnham's, you know, trying to hold back, but she isn't. And I think that that's part of the lesson for me. There was like the emotions and some of the messiness is actually a part of the learning of how to figure out how to solve, you know, some of the other things, right? About the mines, for example, the way they're able to get out through the mines is she thinks about that chess game where Spock isn't doing the moves that she thinks he should do, and he's like, I'm gonna do whatever. Emotions are cool now, you know. I'm having fun with anger, right?
Yeah.
But she has a click.
Yes.
Yeah, she has a click moment, and maybe she has to have had control her emotions, especially as, you know, of all of the leadership roles that she's taken on, whether they're actually a part of her job or not. But she has a moment where she's like, no, we actually have to do random moves and chaos in order to get around this artificial intelligence. So
yes, and I want to.
That was a powerful moment.
Totes. And I want to pick up on that as we transition. We're about to head into the spoiler zone. But before we go, I just have to say this. You all just gave me a Star Trek aha moment of, it's interesting to me that I love this chess game between Burnham and Spock because she's trying to help him recover from this major accident, this major trauma of having his logic reset by the Telosians. And what we actually learned, just even in this conversation we just had before about Ariam and about, you know, what you were saying, Maya, about bathrooms and grab bars and like everybody, wheelchair should fit. It was like, and thank goodness Spock was ill and recovering his logic, because if he had not introduced the randomness of his need to start again and break the rules and not be the Spock their dad raised him to be, we would not have been able to figure out that moment, and Discovery would have died from all those like mines and blade cutting things. So again, props to Michelle Paradise who wrote this episode. Props to Jonathan Frakes and the whole team who brought this together and just giving us all these opportunities to think about perfection and augmentation and what do we really bring if we're bringing our best self, which also means bringing our worst self as we're trying to become our best self. Is kind of what I'm thinking. And I know that was chunky, and I know that can send us into a deeper conversation, but I'm gonna call time on this part of Thematix and just say, if you are into this convo with us, we know that when we come back on September 12th, we're gonna dig back into Ariam and the storyline. So we're not done with this convo. Certainly we are not done because the season is not done. But for right now, we know that these are our thoughts around Thematix, and I want to send us into the spoiler zone so that we can also catch up on some of the business. So if you are watching this show synchronously like Maya and you have not seen past season 2, episode 9, we're going to go into spoiler zone. You're going to want to watch time or watch our visuals. It's only going to be a 2-minute spoiler zone. All right, Rochelle, please, let's go into that spoiler zone.
Incoming transmission.
Okay, go.
Okay. Spock thinks that it's all about him, but it's actually all about Michael Burnham. It's all about Michael Burnham.
It's all about Michael Burnham. And the whole time when they're like, well, when Stamets is, okay, and then just to go back to the bro moment of Stamets trying to say to Spock, like, maybe, you know, here's what you need to think about. I mean, the fact that Spock can't understand his uniqueness is Michael Burnham. You literally are a foster brother to a child who survived a Klingon attack. Like, that's a pretty unique life experience. And the Red Angel first appeared to you when your sister, like, went running into the forest near your house. And the Red, you know, like, I'm like, I get why he didn't put it all together, but sometimes the thing that is most clear is right in front of our face, which is why we cannot see it, maybe, is the moment. And then I just want to say again, Mama Burnham's coming. Mama Burnham's coming.
Okay, so I want to say a season 3 joke. I think this is a season 3 joke. I think that the reason Michael Burnham actually decorates her quarters is not because she's feeling free in the future. I think she actually took Spock, like, commenting on the facts, like, wow, there's no decoration. Huh. That says something about you that maybe you need to think about. I think she took it personally, was working on herself, and that's why she can decorate things. So, like, yay, sibling love and sibling ribbing.
Yes, and I will say I continue to love this season 2 journey because it shows us, yes, like you were saying, Burnham is the flawed human who made mistakes that started this Klingon war, but she's also able to release this trauma, that all these things were her responsibility, that he says to her in that very adult moment, almost like Amanda says to Sarek, do better, sister. Like, don't just stop here. So
Yeah. All right, I won't say my extra thing.
next week you can do it. Next time.
Transfer of data is complete.
All right. So
and that explains everything. Oh, you're back. Oh.
Yes, everything. All right, so Maya Chinchilla has been off camera, not listening, trying to honor the spoiler zone, but you had an opportunity to doodle. So we love to show the doodles. Do you want to do your doodle show for us?
I mean, it seemed like time went by really, really quick. But this is actually supposed to be Ariam looking at things, her memories, like the little eye, ocular, whatever, camera or something. I was going to put something happening in the background, but the time went by too fast. I was like, do I put the background first and then the lens? But yeah.
We love it. We'll definitely take a snap of that and let's have ECL drop that on the Instagram. I just want to say thanks so much for coming back. And there's so many more things to say. This is why Star Trek Discovery, this is why we have a Trek table, because there's way too much to talk about and not enough time. But we want to say thank you to everybody for hanging in here with us with a really long thematics in the spoiler zone, because those are our thoughts on thematics for Star Trek Discovery, Season 2, Episode 9, Project Daedalus.
And if you want to continue supporting the kind of fun that we have here, and you're enjoying our conversations and you love women of color doing their thing and supporting our work, please support us on patreon.com/TrekTable.
And now we are heading into our final Trek Table question number 3. If given the choice, would you want to go through the process each week of deleting memories like our character Ariam? I'm back rocking out to Hollenbeck Gonzo here with our final Trek Table question number 3. If given the choice, would you want to go through the process each week of deleting memories like Ariam? And then I put my face into the camera as if it was that circle where we would have our memories, where we could see them. This is what I like. I like the idea of being able to scan my memories. Like, I can't remember what I did this morning. It'd be real nice to be able to scan things. Maya, how about you? Would you want to go through the process of deleting your memories every week?
I mean, absolutely. I wish I had that kind of a memory so that I could go back and be like, I need to write about this, because I like writing and being able to pull from source material to write. It also makes me think of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which the only problem with that is, yes, you sort of erase things that hurt you, but you also kind of don't get them back. It messes with you. You have a little spots in your memory. So I think only because I'd like to remember more, not because I like to remember less. But I don't know. I feel back and forth, because I do sometimes forget things, and then I no longer hurt because I've forgotten it.
I'm feeling like you as a writer, though, you have the equivalent of her memory bank partially in your writings. Like, in some ways we have these like memory repositories that can help us remember stuff. So that feels amazing. And you were mentioning Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. The last episode of Rick and Morty also references that. So I'm just now thinking of Morty's mind blowers and the act of that character taking memories in and out. I'm like, oh yes, there's so many parallels between so many different sci-fis. Dela, how about you? How would you feel about taking your memories in and out every week? Because this is actually a project she has to do every single week.
I mean, definitely I would ditto some of what Maya said. As a writer, I realized I would probably come to a point where I would need more storage. Like, I would want to keep way more memories probably than I would be allowed. But I just think about all the random writing and the random photos that I keep. And like, I was talking with somebody the other day about, remember, like in LA, they used to have Fox Photo when you'd go to like Save-Ons to get your like, your your canisters of film developed so that you have to like wait for 3 days or 5 days and then get the prints back and not have this like immediate digital copy of whatever happened. Or like I just think about all the extra photos I take that I don't always use. So I will say I do feel like right now I do have this moment when my phone gets too full and I have to delete, you know, the storage space so I can take more photos. But I would think I don't think I would want to do this as a weekly practice. That's where I'm gonna land. Is I respect Ariam has to do this, but if I'm given a choice, no, I don't want to do it on a weekly basis.
I like the idea of it keeping me mindful. I like the idea of having the practice of, I do this as a yearly practice. I review everything I did in the year and I'm thoughtful about it. I'm wondering what it would be like to add that to my meditative practice for like on a weekly basis, just to think about what I did that week and what I'd like to carry with me and what I'd like to let go of. And those were our Trek Table questions for this season 2, episode 9, Project Daedalus.
All right, we are back. And here at the Trek Table, we strive to hold space for Black, Indigenous, Brown women of color. And we want to amplify resources and highlight the work of women of color content creators, community builders, and world shapers. And so this first one I'm going to share is kind of a general one for everybody. Maya Chinchilla, can you share our first signal boost for the day?
Yes. Get ready, because Star Trek Day is coming. That's right, September 8th. 1966. It looks like Star Trek is a Virgo, maybe. It's when the first episode of Star Trek aired. Join Paramount Plus and fans from around the world for a live stream celebration of Star Trek Day on Wednesday, September 8th at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time and 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Live from the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles, California, Star Trek Day will be hosted by Will Wheaton and Micah Burton and feature back-to-back in-person conversations with cast members, creative minds from the Star Trek universe, legacy moments with the iconic cast, plus surprise appearances, announcements, and reveals throughout. The live stream celebration and additional information on Star Trek Day programming and initiatives can be found at startrek.com/day.
Yes, and I want to say Daddy Colbert's going to show up, so all our Space Daddy fans, you want to check out that schedule. Just giving you a love. Just giving you all love. All right. So that was a more broad. There you go. That was a more broad call. Claudia, I'd love you to share this specific signal boost that we want to amplify out to our friends and listeners today.
Yes, so this is a signal boost for an event called The Call Reprise. The Call is for our Black community. So our Black community has gathered annually on New Year's Eve to observe Watch Night since Freedom's Eve, December 31st, 1862, when free Blacks and Black slaves came together all across the nation to await news that the Emancipation Proclamation had become law on New Year's Day, 1863. On August 31, we are gathering to close out the month of BAMDAFest programming. So this was all Black programming, international programming. We will have drummers from Nigeria. We will have speakers from the Black Panther Party. And we're going to be gathering in song, music, prayer, and art to set the intention for a global watch night to see us safely through another year. This art ritual is for the Black community, and we have a link to the BAMDAFest programming that we will be sharing with you, bamdafest.com.
Yes, we're so excited to amplify those things. And if you have a woman of color content creator or events that you think we should amplify, please let us know by DMing us at Trek Table on Instagram or at Trek Table 1 on Twitter. You can also join our mailing list and email us. But that was our signal boost for episode 26. And we are back, and we want to say thank you so much for joining us today for this episode 26 of the Trek Table. And as is the case at the end of every episode, we want to gather our final thoughts as we close out this episode and prepare to watch the next one. So I'm going to invite Maya to go first. Maya, your final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, you all have me thinking a lot about memory and, what we want to remember and what sometimes we remember when we even don't want to remember those things. I'm also, a writing coach sometimes. I'm helping a couple people with writing their memoirs as, you know, uh, people who are later in their lives and they've lived a lot of life and they're writing certain things and then they discover even letters from specific moments and information, and then the memories that they had are of a certain aspect of it maybe, but they don't remember all the things that they actually have documentation for, and they get to see that memory from a different perspective, a different time period, and it's just so amazing and fascinating, how memory works and how we decide to use our memory, and what sometimes we feel like we don't have control over. So I'm thinking a lot about, not only Ariam, but also, Spock and Burnham and their memories of their childhood, and this being kind of like this inciting moment that affects them forever, and for better for worse, a lot of us, have challenges that experience, or some of us have like actual trauma that we kind of have a very clear memory of, or we think we have a clear memory of, or we've been kind of like gaslit about it, or we've been told like that wasn't such a big deal. Or like you have a sibling that experienced the exact same thing but feels completely different about it. So I've just been thinking a lot about that. I mean, I'm trying to like kind of even restructure my brain into not only remembering negative things, and telling myself, sometimes you'll get one negative comment and that's the thing that bubbles up to the surface, and all the positive comments or all the positive memories, sometimes don't get as much action or play because you're kind of over hyper focused on the negative. And so, not that it's not real and not that it's not important, but I'm sort of practicing trying to reorder my own brain, and maybe even a Spock way. Yeah, and sometimes you need to let all those feelings out. I'm enjoying his feelings going all over the place, honestly, because I don't feel like he's causing more damage. I think he's actually processing and trying to, search for healing. And yeah, so, but for sure, I really wish I could make more choices about what I remember and what I don't remember, because sometimes there's gaps in places and I'm like, I just want a really wonderful detail, from that moment and that time place. And sometimes other people remember things, and I'm like, how come I can't remember it as much as they can? So thinking a lot about all of that. Yeah. Final
Thank
thoughts.
you.
And yeah, and I would love to invite Claudia for some of her final thoughts.
Yes, final thoughts on Star Trek Project Daedalus. I'm thinking also of similar things, Maya. I'm thinking about how on Vulcan, having any emotion is considered a disabling condition. And so, if you're using the social model of disability, it is a disabling condition. Like Spock has lived his entire life as a disabled person and so has Michael Burnham, because on Vulcan, if you have emotions, you are disabled from being a full functioning member of society. Spock has been acting in ways that aren't in actual real alignment with his real memories. So he has a story, a narrative about a memory. And until he undoes that narrative, he's actually trapped and he can't think about what makes him special, what makes him unique, how is he connected to this red angel. Until he can actually get really honest and really connect to his emotions, he's not able to actually live his best life, be his fullest self, and actually live a life that has Michael Burnham understanding, oh, right, this is the right move for the ship to be making. So it's interesting that for people who have bodies that are atypical, bodies that are different, bodies that are disabled in our society as it is currently shaped, we often will find that we actually are more able in certain ways, or at the very bare minimum, we have a greater, broader perspective that actually makes us more able in the world. So I look at this episode and I go, oh, I could have a lot of different conversations around this episode with the disabled justice community. And for the broader community, the biggest themes I'm thinking about are memory and embracing what others will disable you for.
Thank you so much. Wow, super. I just almost all like, my thoughts might be done. Both of you, just thank you. I'm like, maybe my final thought is just resonating in what I've heard you both say. And what I was really going to say is, thinking about in what I'm calling these pandemia times, because it feels like we're still going in and out of it all. These questions around accessibility are really vital. And just, I think I feel like what we forget a lot in our humanness is that we as humans created all these things. So, the color of the frame that my picture is in right now on in our YouTube video is red, but that's only called red because we called it red, right? And so we created these systems because someone created these systems, and they only are this way because we continue to reinforce them. And so I just appreciate this conversation today and giving us an opportunity, all of us an opportunity, to think about what is our relationship to our own memory and our own bodies? How does that impact how we engage with other people? And then in all of the little ways we can as people and or as people who might have access or power or create things, how easy now that we have this time, now that we can digitally connect, how do we continue to do that and create accessibility for people? While at the same time even thinking about, hearing about a community here in LA that is a low-income housing project in LA, in the city of LA. And I heard a story last night about how the internet truck shows up every Wednesday so they can have Wi-Fi in this housing project every Wednesday. And I think about the places around this country, the places around this world where people still don't have access to technology or access to the things that will help them live. So I feel like, hearing Maya's final thought to Claudia's final thought to mine, I just feel like the very specific to the very, to pulling out. And so my final thought is just, if each of us were to make one small change to create more access for somebody different, what could that be? And what could the ripple of that be? So I'm gonna close with that and just say thank you to this Trek Table Assembled, and to our audience who is listening and watching with us. These are our final thoughts on Star Trek Discovery, Episode 9, Project Daedalus.
And we hope that you will join us on September 12th when we talk about Episode 10 of Star Trek Season 2, Discovery, the Red Angel.
All right, we want to say thank you for joining us at the Trek Table. Make sure to get first look at our Trek Table questions, inside scoops, when you sign up for more on our mailing list at trektablepodcast.com.
And find Trek Table Podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Like and subscribe to this channel, and that way you can get more Trek Table in your algorithms.
And like and subscribe to join us on Instagram or Facebook, at Trek Table on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter at Trek Table 1. Join our convos there, and please comment using hashtag Trek Table, hashtag BIWOC Trek, hashtag Star Trek Discovery.
Yes, and finally, I'd love to say thank you to our Trek Table Assembled here today. Thank you for holding down this ritual and really taking us deep. I'm going to echo something that's in the chat from one of our friends in the chat. Really great, deep show today. Thank you so much, Satterfield. Thank you, everybody who's sticking with us. Thank you, Claudia, Alick. Thank you, Maya Chinchilla, for sharing not only your insights on Star Trek, but what I love about what we all make together, which is we get to be flawed humans who share about our realities. And so thank you so much for the power and the grace that you've shared with us today. I really want to say thank you. As we close out this ritual, I just want to remind us what we were holding Trek Space for at the top of the show. Today, we were holding Trek Space for teams who are trying to keep the ship moving, even when there's a staffing change. We're holding space for folks who are augmented humans in an augmented world. and for folks who are being able to breathe some clean air. The Trek Table executive producers are Alison Cruz and Luz Jadiwala, production coordinator Brandon Chang, artist coordinator Ariana Michelle, social media manager and chat moderator Isil Borlasa. Our stage manager is also Ariana Michelle, and we want to say thank you and great job to our OBS operator today, Rochelle Wasserman.
Deep gratitude and thanks to Outside In Theater, with extra thanks to Arlo, Alex, Danny, and Tamlin.
And thanks to Deborah Carter, Doc Zulu, and Nancy Yap, and our partners at Visual Communications.
Trek Table is a service mark of De La Projects, LLC.
Yes, and we want to say thank you for joining us for this episode 26 of the Trek Table. Let's go ahead and close out this ritual. Let's go ahead and take one more big closing breath. Let's go ahead, breathe in, and breathe out. Just to remind you, we are going to take a Star Trek break next weekend, but don't forget that Star Trek Day is on 9/8. We hope you enjoy that day and all the things that are happening. Meet us back here on Sunday, September 12th, when we check in about Season 2, Episode 10, The Red Angel. Have a great 2 weeks. We'll be holding Trek Space for you until then. Live long and prosper. See you guys soon.